Have you ever wanted to get off your couch and get inside that action movie? You know, crawl and jump around some lasers, beat some dastardly puzzle with a ticking clock that if you don't get it in time is going to spell the doom of humanity itself? Well, this week we're talking with Alex Patterson. He is the founder and CEO of Beat the Bomb. This is a place where you can live that true James Bond experience. And there is a ticking bomb, but it doesn't spell the doom of humanity itself. Instead, it's just a big old messy paint bomb, which, I don't know, that sounds pretty bad to me. Anyway, I recently attended Entertainment Experience Evolution. It's a conference about retail entertainment and eatertainment put on by Interface Conference Group, which is a division of France Media. And I had a chance to sit down with Alex to find out about Beat the Bomb, what their growth plans are, what types of real estate they like to be in, and honestly, we got into a whole lot more than just that. So let's just get into it right now. You're listening to Where We Buy. It's the show where we talk with retail experts and we visit the places where we buy. My name is James Cook. I research retail and real estate for JLL.
So my name is Alex Patterson. I'm the founder and CEO of Beat the Bomb, and I've been doing that since about 2016.
You didn't start out creating mad experiences, or maybe you did. What's your origin?
Well, I definitely didn't start out creating the world's largest paint bomb, foam bomb, and slime bomb. I'm sure that you could draw a psychological or psychographic or history timeline to my youth and see where all of the different influences were along the way.
What's your number one influence, do you think?
I mean, there are days when I think that, so I'm a big surfer and I love the ocean and I love playing around in the waves. I love playing the shore break. And there's this game we play where you run from the beach and try to duck under a huge wave before it just explodes you. And it occurred to me recently that Beat the Bomb and the ending in which you're getting blasted by a giant paint bomb is basically like getting hit with a wave of paint. And in some ways, I'm taking people who will never jump into the ocean or never go surfing, and I'm hitting them with a wave of paint because that's one of the most fun things that I love about being in the ocean. Now, that's just, one of many, many different influences. And of course, that's the really fun grand finale of Beat the Bomb. All the games along the way are sort of a whole different story. They definitely come from different influences.
So just for folks that aren't familiar, it's not exactly an escape room. How do you describe it to somebody who's never experienced Beat the Bomb?
Well, sometimes we say it's Mission Impossible meets Double Dare because that kind of captures some of the game show-esque structure to the experience. So it's a 1-hour experience for 4 to 6 players on a team. You go through 5 interactive game rooms. The first 4 of them are each a 10-minute game. Each room is different and includes a game that makes you work together. So there's a sound game, a motion game, there's a communications game, there's a laser game. Each of these 10-minute games earns you time on your bomb clock. Not by virtue of going more quickly through the game, but by just doing better at the game and earning points in the game. The points essentially translate into time. Time is sort of the point structure of the game. So 4 10-minute games in a row, you progress linearly from room to room to room to room. And then you take your accumulated time. It could be a minute and a half, or it could be 3.5 minutes, or it could be 5.5 minutes. And then you go into this glass-walled bomb room that looks out onto the bomb bar. And maybe your family or friends are outside the glass with their cell phones running. And you try to play a final game to try to disarm this giant bomb. And if you fail, which I can nearly guarantee you will, if you fail, you get blasted by paint, or you have this giant slime drop on you, or the room fills up with foam, and then you get hit with like almost a human car wash of foam. 3 different endings, each one a different game set along the way. But all of the experience is about working together. It's about coming together. It's about trying to figure out how these games work as a team. And ultimately, it's about getting blasted, having it be messy, and then the bomb room turns into a really cool photo booth where we capture photos and videos of your team. You get a dance video, and all that gets sent to your cell phone so that as you're leaving, you can post it on Instagram or Twitter or Snapchat or TikTok.
And when the inevitable explosion occurs and you get blasted with, say, paint, you're wearing what, like you got protective gear, I imagine, that everybody's outfitted with.
Only if you pay us another $100 a person. No, just kidding. Yeah, we wouldn't be in business if we didn't have, we give everyone a hazmat suit, a full body suit, a onesie, zip up the middle. You get booties for your shoes, and you get a helmet with a face shield to protect your face when you're getting hit with the paint. So it's very safe. The entire onesie has a hood, so your hair is covered. So yeah, you can just unzip it, you step out of it, and then you're ready to go. You're ready to go to the bomb room. Sorry, bomb bar.
So you will sign up, what, with your friends, or can you go and be paired with other people? Is that, how does that work?
You sign up with your friends. We don't pair you up with other people. It's just such a kind of interactive game that we just don't want to necessarily put a group of 12-year-olds with their parents with a group of 30-year-olds who are looking to party. So the rooms are relatively small enough, 4 to 6 players. We actually have a 4-player minimum right now. We just really encourage people, even if you wanted to play as a 2-player group, we really want to encourage you to go find another couple or a couple friends. We're thinking about whether we do like a date night during the week, but yeah, it's a 4 to 6 player game, and we do giant groups. I mean, we'll do groups of 60 people, groups of 120 people, and we'll just break them into 10 groups or 20 groups and essentially progress them 2 groups at a time into the experience.
And so they're progressing from room to room. Each room, what do you do, like 5 or 10 minutes per challenge?
Every room's exactly 10 minutes.
Okay.
Except for the bomb room, that's the amount of time you have going to the bomb room.
Okay. I gotcha. Tell me, I watched a few videos. The challenges, like you said Mission Impossible. That's what I thought of. There's like the classic Mission Impossible, or what's that movie with Catherine Zeta-Jones, Entrapment, where she's got to go underneath all the lasers. You guys have that, right?
Yes, we have a laser. Yeah.
Okay.
We don't have Catherine Zeta-Jones yet. If you're listening, Ms. Zeta-Jones, please come on out.
You can pretend to be her though. And how does it work? You have to crawl and go up and down over different lasers and stuff like that?
Yeah, so there it's 30 lasers that cross the room, and it's configurable and controllable by us. So as a team, everyone has an RFID wristband, and you get across the room and you tag RFID readers that authenticate to the system that every player has gotten across the room. And then the laser pattern will change and get harder, and then you'll have to come back. So think about it going from side A to B, and then B to A, then A to B. You go back and forth across the room as many times as you can in 10 minutes as a team. And then each time you go across, you have a certain number of allotted laser hits. Like maybe you have 10 hits as a team, 10 laser breaks, so to speak. So if there are 5 of us, we're trying to get across, James, if you hit 9 lasers and then you turn around and say, hey, I'm so fast, you guys are such slowpokes, we'll be like, James, you went so fast because you also hit 9 lasers, and now the rest of us better be perfect, or else we're going to have to repeat that. So if you fail a level, you just go back to the side from which you came, you tap your wristbands against the readers, and you start that level again. But it's sort of a team penalty that has everybody thinking and having some team consequences.
Tell me, let's get into the economics a little bit. How much does a ticket cost? That's the first question. How much does a ticket cost?
Costs about $40 to $50 depending on when you're playing, whether it's during the week or the weekend.
Okay. And you also have, do you have a food and beverage element as well?
We do. So 6 of our 7 venues have a full liquor bar as well as a food offering. Things like chicken wings, fries, chicken sandwiches, sliders, pizzas, hot dogs, salads.
Gotcha. And was that always part of the vision, or did you kind of realize, hey, we need the food element in addition to it?
So the first location didn't have it. That was really us focusing on the core gaming experience itself. And then over time, once we were expanding to our second and third unit, we said to ourselves, okay, everybody who's leaving Beat the Bomb is saying to themselves, where are we going to go get a drink and talk about this experience? So why don't we build that into the concept itself? But it's not necessarily something that the concept absolutely requires. I think, if we get towards our longer term plan, I think we'll have a variety of formats, some of which do have the food and beverage and maybe some of which don't. But particularly for corporate groups, for kids' birthday parties, it's really great to have the food and beverage. Corporate groups want you to be a one-stop shop. Once they come out of the experience, right there, you can have a whole bunch of sort of appetizers, fingered food, cafe style menu for them. We're not a true restaurant in terms of having people sit down at tables with a waiter or waitress per table. It's a little bit more of a kind of a cafe, open beer garden style in the center of our facility.
Tell us about where the locations that you're in. Like, was your first one was New York? Is that right?
Yeah, our first one was in Brooklyn, New York.
Okay. So that makes sense. That seems like a place to start a concept like this. Where have you gone since opening that first location?
Well, since opening the first location, we then went to Atlanta. After that, we went to Washington, D.C. And then following that, we just opened in Philadelphia, Charlotte, Houston, and we're about to open Denver next month.
Oh,
So that'll get us to 7 total locations.
Where I'm going to be in Denver next week. Where are you guys going in Denver?
We're going to a great project called York Street Yards, which is just northeast of the Rhino District.
Okay, so this might not go into the
5-minute
podcast,
Uber
but
away,
I'm pretty sure I've been there. I saw, okay, this is a deep cut.
Sure.
David Byrne, the musician, did an immersive theater experience that I think was there.
Really?
like 2 years ago.
Wow.
And it's like these long buildings.
These former military depots.
And it's like right near a Rivian dealership.
Exactly. Rivian has a dealership. Yeah, there's now
That's a great location.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, there's a bunch of fun entertainment stuff coming out there. There's a dog park concept out there. There's like one of those golf swing suite style places. There's a brewery. Yeah, like a lot of very, very cool stuff. I mean, we find ourselves being just maybe on the outskirts of the downtown of cities in often single-story warehouse or old adaptive reuse. So it's definitely one of the kind of physical formats that we find successful is to be like an adaptive reuse of a former warehouse building.
And when you're thinking about demographics, it sounds like it's anybody from what, age 12 to 40, maybe? I don't know. What's your thought on that?
Our lowest age is 8, and that's just by virtue of sort of height and comprehension of the games. So it's 8 up to, however much spring you got in your step. So we've had people in their 70s and 80s play the game. But the core demographic it splits between the kids with birthday parties and family groups bringing the youth. But the core really is that 25 to 35-year-old group of millennials or zillennials going out having fun. So I'd say like and then there's the corporate groups. So during the week after work, it's a lot of corporate team building. And that probably was the original inspiration for it, was very much a team building challenge. And I think I was a little bit surprised when our Saturday nights started to become packed. And then on the weekends during the mornings and the days, it's a lot of kids, a lot of families, a lot of 13-year-old birthday parties.
Did you personally develop all of the challenges and experiences?
So I'm the founder of the company. And the thing you understand as a founder is in some ways, it can all trace back to you because you're the one, sitting on your couch, looking at the ceiling saying, what do I do with my life? But then on the other hand, you're the person, like the number one person in the world that realizes that it wasn't you. So you don't, deserve all the credit, that in fact, you realize what you couldn't do by yourself. And that it's actually everyone who came after you, who was joining the concept, that actually were the ones that made it happen. So for example, I'm not a software developer. I don't code games. So we have some great people who do that and some people who joined very early to do that. I'm not a mechanical engineer and I don't build paint bombs. I can dream them up, but we have some great people who do that. We have great people on the real estate development and the construction side of things, and now some great partners with that. We have some people coming from operations who've worked at Dave & Buster's and Topgolf and Lucky Strike, who are bringing a lot of industry experience. But yes, from the beginning, kind of cobbling together what this experience was sort of a couple-year journey after I left Tough Mudder.
Okay, well, let's talk about your background. So you were at Tough Mudder, and which is kind of in this universe. For folks that don't know, explain what Tough Mudder is.
So Tough Mudder is a military-style obstacle course challenge. So it's a running event. It's a little bit like a marathon, but we used to say it's like Iron Man meets Burning Man. It's sort of as if you took an army obstacle course and strung it out over 10 miles. There's a start and there's a finish, but the goal of it is to get to the finish. Every half a mile or so, there will be an obstacle. It can be a 10-foot wall. It can be a length of 100 yards of barbed wire that you have to crawl underneath. Maybe there's a dumpster that's full of ice water that you need to jump in and out of. Maybe there's monkey bars that are like this long span of monkey bars that then go over water. And all of these obstacles are sort of part of the fun of getting from the start of the event to the finish. If you finish the event, there's a table if you're over 21. There's beers there. You get an orange headband, and you get to call yourself a Tough Mudder. And the real thing is it's an untimed event. So there's a lot of other events out there that are timed, but a Tough Mudder is about getting from the start to the finish and getting your entire team from the start to the finish. So most people, maybe if you run a marathon by yourself, you'll really never do a Tough Mudder by yourself. You grab a group of people and you come on out and you train, for the months beforehand, and you come on out and you try to get from the start to the finish. But, the people who are the most fit and strongest will often stay at a wall and lift everybody else over the wall. So it's this incredible feeling of camaraderie, a great ethos out there on the course. It's kind of an event unlike any other.
So what did you learn from working at Tough Mudder that you were able to translate into the creation of Beat the Bomb?
I learned a lot of things. I learned things about myself, and then I learned things about experiences and ticketed businesses and marketing. So my trajectory through the company, I started as our attorney, and then I became our head of marketing. And then after that, I was in charge of obstacle innovation and design and the courses and new kind of challenges that were going to be confronted to people. And then I got into the hiring and HR and executive kind of development and team development. So in some ways, over the span of all of that, I learned that, this is how you put a company together. You need to file the legal forms. You need to market and sell the tickets. You need to have an amazing product. But then at the end of the day, it's all about the people that you bring on board and the team that you create. So sort of having seen that and been through all of those phases, I came away 5 years later saying, for me, the challenge isn't going to now be at this company for the next 10 years. The challenge is going to take this set of learnings and go try to put together a company myself. And then in terms of, specific things, I learned that people are yearning to do real experiences that are outside of the house and that get them together with their friends. So they're yearning for these ways to come together and have connection with other people. They're also looking for things that are extremely shareable on social media. So it's great to put your phone down, but then once you're done with an experience, it's really awesome if that experience either got you photos or content that you can post. And that's extremely important for the concept itself in terms of the marketing. You want a concept that markets itself. And Beat the Bomb really was developed backwards from saying, okay, you're going to be in this glass-walled bomb room trying to disarm a bomb and you're going to get blasted with paint and we're going to take your photo and get videos. Okay, I know how it ends. Now, what's the lead up to it? It's almost like if you're an author and you thought of a really cool way for a story to end and they're like, okay, how do I get there?
And the idea that every single person at Beat the Bomb is going to share that video of the paint bomb exploding. Is it, you do it in like slow-mo, I would imagine?
Yes. Yeah, we have slow motion cameras for when the bomb is going off. And then we take a bunch of your photos. And I think the most fun for me to watch at least is then we take a 10-second dance video and people will just dance like there's no tomorrow. We joke and say, look, the dance video is what your grandkids are going to watch. So make it funny. And it's great. And then it makes Beat the Bomb a place to be because you have these glass wall bomb rooms and every 10 minutes there's a different couple groups of people dancing and then they come on out to the bar. So yeah, it's just hilarious and it's fun. And, if someone said to you, hey, what did you do over the weekend? And it's Monday at work or you're talking to a friend or a family member, how are you going to forget that you did this incredible experience with the laser maze, a sound game, a motion game? And then by the way, here's the ending and I can even show it to you on my phone. When Beat the Bomb started, in my mind, it was all about the photo that you get at the end. It was like 2016, 2017 when I was coming up with the idea. Now everything though, and thankfully so, everything is video. And so we really benefit from something like TikTok, which someone can make a walkthrough video saying, hi, I'm James Cook. I'm going through Beat the Bomb. Here's a 1-minute video of the experience. It really helps you to describe something that otherwise would be extremely hard to describe.
I was going to ask you, were you just sitting around and you said you came up with the ending first, which is smart. They always say that, know where your story is going to end. Were you just sitting around thinking, hey, wouldn't it be cool if at the end of some game there was a paint bomb and we took a photo of it when it exploded? It was like that just popped into your head?
Yeah, in some ways it was as simple as that. In other ways, it was a development from, so I left Tough Mudder and I wanted to create the next type of experience. I knew I didn't want it to be nearly as physical. I mean, one of the barriers to entry to be a Tough Mudder participant was you had to be able to run 10 to 12 miles and have enough upper body strength to get yourself over walls and monkey bars. I said, look, it's too niche of a market. It's great, but I want something that takes that type of Tough Mudder teamwork and experience, puts it in a box, puts that box in a city, and can be in every single city in the world. So I began to study escape rooms, study immersive theater, study game shows. And that's where the concept of sort of a highly digitized room format. So for example, escape rooms I think they're really fun. It's a small group experience. You go into this highly designed scenic and set design type of world. It could be a killer's basement. It could be, a jail cell, a submarine, the White House Situation Room. But once you do it and you know where all the locks and clues and puzzles are, you figure it out, you can never do that escape room again. So it seemed a little bit more like, like a Broadway play. Once they create it, it's going to be that play, Hamilton, Cats, Miss Saigon, etc., Lion King. It's going to be that until they strike the set and do something else with it. Now, I know this is a little bit maybe odd because the people who came up with theater are probably, at the time, they were like, this is the most incredibly reprogrammable thing. It's a stage with seats and you can change it every year. So kudos to them. We're just, moving
those Greeks.
Those Greeks who, but truly that is like a reprogrammable thing, right? But then people came along and said, well, what would be better would be a giant screen, and we're going to create, silent pictures, the movies, and we'll be able to change that, every hour or every 2 hours, right? You can go from, whatever, a love story to a war movie. And so when I saw escape rooms, I'm like, oh, this is really cool. But it's a little bit like a Broadway play. Or another analogy might be it's like a board game. A board game has a physical form, Hungry Hungry Hippo, Battleship, Connect 4, and it'll always be just that. But video games on a TV, plug in and out cartridges from your Nintendo, or now it's all downloadable, turns your system into something that can play hundreds of games. So I began to think, what if you had a digitized room and it had touchscreens and RFID readers and all sorts of high-tech stuff, and you could run it based on a gaming platform like Unity? What you could do then is you could constantly change up the game so that every time you came back, you could play a different set of games, and you wouldn't have the same issues that an escape room would have. So I think the insights were, end it with something incredible like a paint bomb that's extremely visceral and physical and also creates these incredible social media moments. But then in the run up to it, have a digitized gaming system that creates these teamwork challenges, but that can be endlessly reprogrammable. And that the entire concept would be very, very scalable because you could essentially put all the IP on a hard drive, go to another country, find an audiovisual firm and stand up the concept. And you wouldn't be limited to having like one incredible cabinet maker at your escape room company. It would become something that you would benefit from scale, so that when you went from, as we've done, 1 location to 7, or eventually 17 or 70 locations, you have a small but growing game design team that can now pump out games, proprietary, very fun games, not only every year, but every month or every week. You could come back to Beat the Bomb and have a different way to beat the bomb, every day practically in the future.
So it changes over time.
Well, we're not there.
Okay.
We're not quite yet. What we have right now is we have a paint bomb, foam bomb, and slime bomb, each of which has a different set of 5 games in their set of games. And that's what we call our mission experience. It takes one hour. Well, we now also have a secondary experience that we call our arcade game bay or arcade battle bay. And that's a 3-wall experience. It has a front wall projection map, and both side walls each have 3 touchscreens. The back of it is a couch and a coffee table and a high top table. So think about something like a darts throwing bay or even like a bowling alley. You have people sitting around, taking turns, jumping in and out of the gaming area. So that's our kind of arcade game bay. And it's maybe the next evolution of Beat the Bomb, where we provide a touchscreen with a whole set of games, sort of a library of 20 to 25 games to the people. And they can rent that for 90 minutes, eat, drink, choose from the games, or choose a particular kind of sequential game sequence where they can compete. And that's where I think the future of Beat the Bomb will shift towards competitive gaming, because I think that's going to be something that's really important for the repeat attendance at Beat the Bomb. There's a whole lot of things we do that honestly make not a lot of sense, like throwing balls in hoops or kicking balls in nets, that you would never do just as a challenge forever. But once you make it competitive, it becomes really something that's compelling to come over and over. So I think the future of interactive digital gaming will be competing.
Yeah. How big is a typical location?
Typical location now is 10,000 square feet. That includes 2 routes with their attendant 2 bomb rooms and 4 to 6 game bays, as well as the full liquor bar, kitchen, party room, bathrooms, storage room. We even have a small laundry facility in every Beat the Bomb now, because our suits are washable and rewashable. And instead of sending it out, we just do it right there in-house. But the great thing about the concept is it's very flexible. We call it boxes in space. It would be like, if you had 2, 18-hole golf courses, that's great. Beat the Bomb is these 2 5-game routes. But if we ever want it to be just one route, meaning that's that's the full experience. Or if we wanted to do 2 rooms that are kind of even smaller footprints. So as we think about like how many Beat the Bombs we can have in the US or internationally, it's great that the concept is very footprint wise, flexible up and down. We're in 10,000 square feet, but we could be in 5,000. We could probably be in 2,500 square feet if we were to put it into, say, someone else's family entertainment center.
And it sounds like, too, because what you're talking about is software and the tenant improvements, like the cost to actually build out the space are probably a lot cheaper than, say, some, theatrical, experience would be.
Yeah, we think we're a reasonable cost. We definitely want to make it quality. I would love to say it were very bare bones, but the tech is not insignificant. We have six touch screens and a projection wall in every single room at least. The bomb room technology is not something you can just go and buy from a Best Buy. It's a very complex, highly safety driven, and not insignificant cost. And then, plumbing, electrical, all of that stuff also adds up. So, especially costs since the pandemic have changed. But compared to some of the other concepts out there, it's very reasonable in terms of the furniture, fixtures, design. There's other stuff out there that costs, $15 million to build. We're probably about a fifth of that.
What for you? What is the ideal location for a Beat the Bomb? Where do you want to be?
We've had a great landlord partnership with Jamestown in Atlanta. They have a bunch of single-story warehouse buildings out in a developing neighborhood called the Upper West Side. And we found a really great spot on a corner there with great visibility, cars going by. One of the important things is to have a location that doesn't have too many columns, because our game rooms require certain set physical footprints. If you have some place that has really weird columns or lots of columns, it can be difficult. But, a 10,000 square foot space that's generally open is something that we look for. And look, Beat the Bomb can fit into a variety of landlord use cases and neighborhoods. So, could it be at something like one of the country's best malls? Absolutely. Could it be kind of in a cool developing warehouse district slightly outside of a city? Yes, it's very much a destination. We see people coming from, an hour plus away. We'll do about 75,000 to 100,000 guests a year. And a lot of them are traveling more than 30 minutes, more than 45 minutes, some of them even more than, 100 miles to come to Beat the Bomb. So, some place that's known or easy to get to would be great. But it's a lot. What we've realized over time, it's really about having the right landlord partner that can come in different varieties. But you really want a landlord partner that can, invest in the concept and invest in the relationship.
So you seem like a very creative person. And, it took a lot for you to envision this and then put a team together to build it. Do you think that in the future, your creativity is going to be in innovating Beat the Bomb? Or do you envision yourself at some point, not tomorrow, but some point, saying, okay, I want to create a new experiential thing? What do you think?
If I had to predict it, I'd say it's going to be a bit of both. Beat the Bomb is something that the reason it works for me, sort of emotionally, on one level, is because it is something that can continue to evolve. I can work with our game development team and spend half the day creating new games and putting creativity into that, even as the platform remains the same. So, if you were to create Netflix, that's an endless opportunity if you're a filmmaker to create new films. And you don't need to create necessarily another Netflix. Beat the Bomb is becoming a platform for these interactive digital games. And so I think there's a very, very long runway for that. And I think it may just be that is what I spend sort of the rest of my time on, is creating different interactive games with our system, different versions of our system, different new technologies applied to our system. It's not inconceivable that in 5 years you could walk into a Beat the Bomb and we would hand you a set of those Ray-Ban Mark Zuckerberg glasses and you'd be playing games in augmented reality in the room. So I really think that Beat the Bomb just has an enormous runway for continued creativity. And in as much as it works in Brooklyn and Atlanta and DC and Houston and soon Denver, why wouldn't it work all over the world? So I think I want to be realistic about just how much incredible runway there is for more creativity with Beat the Bomb and continued iterations of the concept. That said, we have underlying software system in which we can pair a ticket selling platform with our in-house site ops system, showing video games and different content on screens, we have almost the bones to create other experiences with that core architecture and framework. So I do think that over time we will become multi-brand and we will come up with new things, whether they involve dancing or, reinventing karaoke or maybe reinventing laser tag, or who knows what we'll necessarily come up with. Maybe there's a version of a haunted house that's a little bit more like a gamified version. Maybe there's trivia type concepts that are out there. And what we would benefit from is having this core software system, as well as all the other things about a company that are difficult to build, a finance team, a legal function, a marketing group. So I do think that over time we'll become multi-brand. I say if we're like a Pixar, we're in the stage where we're still building Toy Story, and Toy Story is really valuable. But then once Pixar did Finding Nemo and Monsters Inc. and the other kinds of titles that they did, it's like, oh, they're basically a concept. They're a movie studio. Maybe Beat the Bomb becomes sort of a concept studio eventually. But yeah, that's sort of one of the questions that I sometimes will think about when I go on a walk. It's like, where are we going to go with this?
When you hire a software developer, is it a challenge for them to take somebody who maybe developed games for a phone or a PC or a video game system and make this game that's like physical in the real world?
It takes a very unique type of person.
Okay.
Because that person needs to straddle traditional video gaming as well as these new interactive elements in the room. It could be sensors that know where you're standing in a sort of volumetric way. It could be the touchscreens, and all this stuff is networked together, the RFIDs. So it takes a very unique person who's kind of a mix of a software and a hardware, like kind of a game developer, software whiz, plus a hardware person. And also, I'd say that the most unique part of it, though, is not so much that you're building video games with a new set of technologies. That is one part of it, but is you're trying to create a social experience for the people in the room. So whereas maybe a traditional video game is you have all the controls at your own fingertips and you're walking through a world and shooting zombies or bad guys or something, Beat the Bomb games take as much inspiration from things like charades or like drinking games, dare I say it, where it's about the interactions of the players. So I'll give you one example of a game that's very simple but fun. We have a game called Word Bank. You see 6 words on the front screen. They then disappear. And then a word shows up on each of the 6 touchscreens around the room. The catch is one of the words around the room was not on the front screen when the original words showed. So as a group, you need to decide which of these words is the odd one out, and you touch that screen and you figure out whether the system tells you whether you're right or wrong. That's very simple when there's only 6 words, but it's 6 words at first, and then 2 sets of 6 words flash quickly. Then 3 sets of 6 words flash quickly. And as a team, you need to figure out the strategy of who's going to try to decide which segments of the word bank you're going to look at. And so it becomes this social game. A game like that has nothing to do with graphics. It's just words and timing and when they show up. It has to do with understanding the people in the room. And so I think one of the most fun things about being a game designer at Beat the Bomb, and one of the things that our team excels at, is they're understanding the human dynamics and the social dynamics, not just the hardware and not just sort of the traditional video game, graphics and stuff that happens on the screen.
That's fantastic. I love that description you gave because now I get it. Like I see what it's all about. It sounds like fun. It sounds like something I'm imagining. Okay, now you're going to look over here and you remember these words, and the strategy that goes behind it. It's so cool.
Yeah, like other games, we have a game called Echo Chamber that's inspired by the game Simon, blue, red, green, yellow. But here, every person around the room stands by an RFID reader, which acts as like a button. And you hear a sound pattern, deet, deet, doot, doot, deet, doot, doot. And each player's RFID reader accounts for one sound. And so now the team needs to recreate the pattern back to the system and do it successfully. So if one of the players is not paying attention, doesn't know when to hit their button, you're not going to succeed. And we give you some clues on the front screen. Every sound has a symbol associated with it. But the team also is given the ability to basically record when they're ready, or hit another button to replay the pattern. And what's funny is just watch the dynamics. People will spend some time disagreeing where, James, you're saying, I need to hear it again. And I'm saying, no, James, you don't. We're ready to record. I'm going to hit the record button. You're saying, no, Alex, I don't know when I'm going in the pattern. And it's just like what's happening in the room is a social experience. And in some of the ways we do it, it's almost at times painful to watch because you're like, as a game developer, maybe you want a game to go smoothly. But as a developer of Beat the Bomb game, you're trying to create a lot of the point of the game is for them to try to figure out how do we even play the game. And, you could get very meta with Beat the Bomb and you could say, well, life is a game without instructions, where you try to figure it out. Or you could say, on a very meta level, what is life besides it's a countdown clock that you don't know when the end is, and you need to decide how to figure out what to do with that time, and you need to spend that time, quality time with people you love. So Beat the Bomb is sort of this, microcosm. It's a ticking down timer. You're doing challenges with people you love, trying to figure out how to do it. Try not to yell at each other too much while you're doing it. So it's extremely fun. I mean, we just really have a laugh developing all these different games. The final game in our main mission, which is the paint bomb mission, I call it our main one because it's the one we had forever, but it's trying to drive a robot through a maze and everyone has a different direction: forward, left, right, aim, fire, map, and trying to watch a team figure those things out when every single controller looks the same. All the buttons look the same, so it's not like there's a hint as to what does what, is really, really fun. So that's what I meant by sort of having almost a game show-esque platform. When I think about like Family Feud, Jeopardy, Wheel of Fortune, these are all going to be around long after we're all gone because it's a great format. So Beat the Bomb, in as much as it's 4 games in a row that challenge you to work together, to earn time on a bomb clock, to go into a final room and play a final challenging game to try to disarm the bomb. That's something that you can play over and over and over. Is something we can develop many, many games for. And that's, not even saying that there's this wider world of digital interactive gaming. So this is going to be certainly an overclaim, but if you developed a Bible press, and what you mean by it is you developed a printing press to print Bibles, because that's, I think, one of the original uses of it, and you said to people, this is my Bible press, and then someone said, wait a second, but that it doesn't have to only print Bibles. It can print instruction manuals. It can print romance novels. It can print short stories. It's a printing press. Beat the Bomb's interactive digital game rooms at first were created in order to effectuate this vision I had for 10-minute team building games, one after the other in a linear sequence where you move from room to room and you earn time on a final clock to then try to beat the bomb. But as we built this software architecture, and this is how we get to our arcade game bay. As we build a software architecture, we said to ourselves, it doesn't have to be a 10-minute game, and it doesn't even have to be cooperative. We can create a 2 versus 2 game, digital game in this room. We can create a game where 6 people go in, and it's everyone for themselves. So in our game bay, we have an incredible game that was called Ejection Seat. It's basically musical chairs using the RFID readers. So there'll be 6 of us, and then you'll kind of be walking around the room, some music will be playing, and then boop, 5 lights will show up, and you have to tap a reader that's illuminated. Obviously, one person's out, and that person gets an X, 3 X's, and you're ejected. So all of this is by which to say that the notion of going into interactive digital game room and playing any number of different formats and styles of gaming is, I think, what we're starting to really discover as a company. Another analogy might be if you're an archaeologist in Egypt and you start to uncover, the corner of something that you think is a small tomb, and then you realize, actually, no, this is part of a much larger complex. I feel like Beat the Bomb as a company in developing this software architecture of interactive digital gaming is starting to, scratch the dust away on a future of the ways that people will come together and socialize and interact in games. So, as we know in this industry, there's a lot of people who are taking games that have already existed, mini golf, darts, shuffleboard, ping pong, etc., and they're updating them for the modern day. They're putting technology in them, chips in the balls or cameras on the darts, etc. But what I think Beat the Bomb is doing is looking out 10, 20, 30 years in the future and saying, how are people going to be interacting? What kind of games are they going to be playing? And starting to build that and saying it's probably going to be interacting with digital interfaces. It's probably going to be software driven by a gaming software like Unity or Unreal. It's probably going to involve projection walls and volumetric capture of your body. We don't really exactly know. It might eventually involve, headsets and glasses and AR. VR is cool. It almost has jumped jumped it too much. It's like we're not really ready for it. It might still make you nauseous, and the graphics might be great. I think it's going to get there, but there's something still about seeing the whites of each other's eyes and interacting in a real physical room. And a lot of the technology now is allowing us to do that. So I'm extremely excited about what we're doing as a company. I think there's just a huge opportunity. I think there'll be lots of different companies, and there are some out there that are kind of starting to, join us in pioneering different formats of interactive digital gaming. But I think this is going to be a real big way that people socialize and interact and game and get out of the home and have fun in the decades ahead.
Alex, this has been a fantastic conversation. We've gone from the Greeks. We took a detour to the Gutenberg Press. We've talked about the future of location-based entertainment. This has been such a cool conversation. Alex Patterson, CEO and founder of Beat the Bomb. Thank you so much for joining me.
James, thanks a lot. I appreciate the opportunity.
If you like this podcast, do me a favor, go into the app that you're listening to and give us a rating. Or even better, give us a little review. Write just a sentence about what you like about the show. You can subscribe to Where We Buy on the iPhone podcast app, on Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Or you can always find us on the web at wherewebuy.show. We also post a ton of cool videos and interviews on LinkedIn and YouTube, video tours, interviews with folks that you won't hear on this audio podcast. You can check it out by going to the website everythingweknow.show. If you have a specific question about retail, shopping centers, or retail real estate, you can feel free to connect with me and send me a message on LinkedIn. You can find me by searching for James Cook, JLL. Our theme music is Run in the Night by the Good Lords under Creative Commons license.